talking about video games and how they're a new avenue to find joy, create, and express yourself. So I want to introduce you to a hypothetical situation that it's not necessarily based on reality, but it's a person named Nate the Gamer. And based on the name, you can probably tell he's a video game enthusiast. So what might we think about somebody who spends a lot of their time playing video games? We might think that they're a bad influence, they're wasting their time, and just it isn't the best use for the person playing the games. And there's this idea again in the media that again, it is a waste of time, it's having a bad influence on the mind. And sometimes it's even one of the catalysts behind acts of violence. And so I don't want to necessarily persuade you or change your perspective on what you currently have on video games, but I just want to introduce you to a new perspective on it, my own perspective, and just kind of explain it from there. So if we go back to the title, a new avenue to find joy. What exactly do I mean by that in the context of video games? So when I'm talking about joy, I'm mostly talking about it being access for you to have fun, entertainment. In fact, in North America, up to 60% of people actually play video games in some way, shape, or form, of all ages. And so why do so many people play video games? What's the appeal to it? So I did a little bit of reading, and I tried to understand what made people happy, what made people find joy, and I came across two concepts, freedom and control. So there are a lot of readings supporting the fact that if you're free and you have control over your life, you're more likely to be happy. And although that's just a couple studies, if you think about it logically, if you have the resources to take control of your life, to be free, then you're less likely to encounter stresses. You're more likely to be happy in a sense. So how does that tie into having fun with video games? Freedom and control are two really big themes when it comes to video games. You have the freedom in a game to immerse yourself in that world, play at your own pace, and if a certain video game doesn't necessarily match what's appealing to you, you always have the option to play something else. There are hundreds of genres out there. And when it comes to control, you have the ability to make the decisions that you want and approach the game how you want to play. You aren't necessarily restricted with the decisions you want to make. If the game even has one end goal, you still have multiple ways to approach it as the player because you're put first in that decision. Video games are also a way for you to create. And so when I say create, one of the first things that comes to my mind is art. So I'm sure most of us would agree that music, painting, acting, and in this case voice acting, are forms of art. So by that extension, when we think about video game development, all three of these elements go into it. And so if we accept the idea that that's art, then fusing them together to create a final product is potentially a new art form as well. And so that brings the idea of video games possibly being a new type of art. Video games also give you a way to create a new world. So this is a gorgeous cityscape here. It might surprise you when I say that it's completely made within a video game. So again, if somebody were to do this in reality, it would take a lot of resources that wouldn't necessarily be on them. They'd be limited by the fact that they wouldn't have the resources to complete the project like in real life. But in video games, the only limitation is your imagination and your dedication. So I want to take a step further back and talk about content creation. So with regards to video games, I'm sure some of us know about video game streaming websites, but just to get everybody on the same page, I want to talk about twitch.tv, which is just a website where anybody can live stream the video games they're playing for an audience. And I want to talk about this because it's actually been blowing up recently. Just as of last year, it's pulling in as many viewers as CNN and MSNBC. And that's just crazy to think about. Something online that anybody can do and people are making careers out of, all because of their own approach to playing the video games. So these are some of the most popular streamers on the website. Collectively, they average up to about 80,000 viewers a day at any given time. And that's all thanks to the commentary that they provide and overall just the entertainment they add to playing the video game. And finally, video games are a way to express yourself. There are tons of choices you can make when it comes to the character you choose or how you customize your character to look, appear, and just kind of act in the video game. So an example I want to give is this player named Rang Chu, who's a professional Tekken 7 player. And basically, Tekken 7 is a video game where it's like a 1 versus 1 combat style fighting game. and you choose your character, you choose any character from like the list of the roster. And so what he did to put his own spin on the game is he went against the norm from what everybody else was playing. Everybody would gravitate towards the fast, flashy characters and express themselves in that way. He chose Panda, who's completely different from the norm. It's a slow, patient character, and he wanted to express himself in that way. And by choosing to play his own way, he was not only able to win the Tekken World Championships, but also completely changed the landscape of the game and how newer players approached it. So let's take a look back at Nate the Gamer. So initially we may have thought that he was wasting his time playing video games. They were a bad influence on him. But hopefully after this talk, we can kind of think of it as him playing video games alongside his friends to find happiness or to just be entertained, or creating new strategies alongside his friends, or just expressing himself against his friends in his own unique way. And at the end of the day, he's playing video games the way that he wants to play. Thank you.